Okay, in this video we're going to talk about an OPFOR disruption force. Now before I get into it, I know I should say, because I haven't been doing this as much, up at the top of the screen there you'll see the address for the Patreon channel. I also included as the first line in the description, if you like what I do, come over to Patreon. You know, kick me $1 or $2, whatever you so decide. I try to post links to videos and that stuff over there that I think are useful for knowledge for preppers and militias in particular. They do kind of overlap on knowledge, obviously, because the same survival stuff that applies to a prepper can also apply to a militiaman in the field. So come on over there if you like what I do, kick me a few bucks. The money I collect is used for supplies for the militia unit I am with. Now back into the video itself. The disruption force is an ad hoc force made up of available assets to prevent or delay the enemy from conducting an effective attack. This is typically done when the OPFOR is on the defense. For a militia or guerrilla force, this would be something we would use to try to slow the enemy, mess them up before they're able to launch a what in Vietnam would have been referred to as a search and destroy mission, or nowadays we would call counterinsurgency operations. They're going to be moving through the area, they're going to be sweeping, they're going to try to fix the guerrilla force and then destroy them with fires, either direct or indirect. Now the possible elements that would be part of this disruption force would be light infantry and guerrilla forces, light mortar teams with 60mm mortars because they're easier to transport, scout sniper teams, air defense / anti-aircraft teams. If you're using them to defend an area, they're air defense. If you're sending them forward to hunt enemy aircraft, they're anti-aircraft. Engineers, anti-tank teams, long-range reconnaissance patrol teams or LRP teams, along with your scouts, which would be closer in, light vehicle raiders and technical vehicles, lighter multiple rocket systems along the lines of your 107mm, and those ideally should be mounted on trucks so that they're able to shoot and scoot, and saboteur teams from militia support elements. Now the actions that will be conducted by this force to disrupt the enemy is to deceive the enemy as to the location and configuration of our main defense zones and unit locations, delay enemy assembly of forces, channelize the enemy onto unfavorable axes of advance, ambushing key weapon systems during movement while they're moving up into position to support the attack. So you're trying to ambush, say, the artillery and that. Attacking vulnerable troop concentrations inside quote-unquote safe areas. Attacking headquarters and control centers. Destroying communications relays. Something that I've always noticed is radio relays, communications relays, typically do not have a lot of security around them. They get put on hilltops or wherever, and at least the ones we were always setting up to support us had very few people with them as security. You might have maybe a fire team with them, maybe a squad. Destroy or sabotage vehicles such as aircraft on the ground inside their forward assembly areas, if possible. Remember, aircraft can come in from a distance. Now the little situation we have here, and yes, I am working on my tactical graphics. I pulled out my graphics reference cards and I found out there's a few things that are not on them that should be, so I'm going to have to add to those. So if I messed up the unit designations on this for size, sorry about that. Go off of what I say they're supposed to be, not necessarily what it shows on the board. But friendly forces here. We have a light guerrilla squad is set up in defense up here. They are watching a bridge and this roadway up in here. Here near the intersection we have a infantry squad and also a squad of anti-tank or anti-armor teams. This anti-armor would be a little bit heavier along the lines of javelins, Milans, maybe AT-13s, whatever that we have available. They're not going to be tows. It's still going to be weapons that are going to be man-portable, that they can grab and move quickly when needed to where needed. Down here we have another squad which is watching this roadway around in here. The general terrain, as you see, is wooded. We have Hardball Road here and here. There's a bridge up off this way. Behind our defending force we have a river. On the other side of that we have a ridge line, and coming down the ridge line we have a stream. Up on top of the ridge line, hidden inside more trees, is the bulk of our force. The bulk of our guerrilla company, with a platoon of engineers and a platoon of 81mm mortars. There would also be some air defense and other assets that would be with us. Stuff that we've been able to acquire either by capturing on the battlefield, stealing, got off black market, made ourselves, whatever we had available. The anticipated enemy force, from what we've been able to get for information from our intel network and our scouts and LRPs have been able to identify. There is a light infantry battalion gathering in the north. We anticipate they're going to be coming down from the north and sweeping through the area here. We do not anticipate that they're going to go past the bridge. We expect that they're going to stay east of it. We found that there is a battalion of strikers that is off to the east. We expect they're going to come down to Hardball, possibly start deploying from the intersection going down. So we expect that they're going to come in, turn, and start deploying. We've identified a battalion of towed 155mm M777 artillery pieces that is going to be in support. We also anticipate that they will be launching helicopter landings behind our position on likely landing zones to put in infantry units behind us as a blocking force. So a hammer and anvil type operation. They'll put in those blocking forces behind us and they'll start launching in the infantry and that stuff from the front to try to sweep through, get us scared like rabbits, and as we run start gunning us down. And if we start putting in a fight and we're dug in, they'll call in their 155s. So the commander here, because we're vastly outnumbered, we have roughly a company plus up against a brigade combat team at least, will get wiped out quickly. So ideally we need to pull out of the area. But while that's going on, we're going to do two things. We have a light defense that's going in just to slow the enemy, and we're going to send our disruption force into the enemy's area in front of our defenses to slow them up and cause them some damage. we're not going to be able to destroy them. We're just trying to slow them, give us enough time to pull out and disperse. And we will have a set rally location or multiple locations where each of the elements are supposed to go to for a set amount of time. Then we will come back together, reform, and continue operations. So these guys are going to be pulling back, but we're going to take some people from the company here, send them forward. Well, we'll probably send forward at least one squad from the engineer unit. The rest of the engineers will go forward and put in IEDs and possibly mines in along the roadway, especially in this area in here because of the strikers coming in. So they'll definitely want to get some ordnance put in on that road to try to take out some of those strikers as they're moving forward. We'll send forward squads from the infantry platoons. We'll also send forward some 60mm mortar teams. We'll also send out scout sniper teams. We will deploy captured man pads, man portable air defense systems, your Stingers, your SA-16s, whatever we been able to get a hold of. We will deploy those to cover the most likely and the most troublesome anticipated landing sites that the enemy could launch infantry into. We will use some of our 81mm, at least one squad will stay set up in here to provide fire support for our defense in here. But our teams will launch forward, our disruption force, and they will start attacking the enemy troops inside their assembly areas. Our scout sniper teams should try to locate where the enemy command centers are at, where their TOCs are, tactical operation centers. If they can find where the brigade TOC is at, they definitely need to concentrate around that. And as people are coming in for planning meetings and stuff, take them out. Especially if you see them doing a sand table. You'll always see that before an operation. They'll set up a big thing down on the ground, a giant terrain model, which will be lined out and that stuff for grid lines and everything. That'll be the big terrain model. Your scouts need to get as much written down on that as they can. Maybe monitor them as they're doing their little walkthrough on the sand table. Make notes. Get an idea of who's going where. What route are they going to use for approach and so forth. What landing sites are they going to use? What's their locations and that. But as they're finishing up with that terrain model, have your scout snipers start picking off as many officers as they can. Concentrate on your battalion commanders who are going to be older, your brigade commander who's typically going to be the oldest person at the sand table, and taking out those company commanders. You want to take out as many officers as you can, making sure to take out those higher level leaders. It wouldn't hurt to have some of those mortar teams set up also, that as the sand table is ending, they drop a couple rounds right on top of it, and then the snipers start taking them out after that. Now our engineers that we sent forward, they'll put in a few mines, a few booby traps, maybe some IEDs right in front of the enemy position, so as they're pulling forward to try to advance on us, they're going to drive right through the stuff or walk right through it. At nighttime, our infantry will get inside their assembly areas, take out the sentries silently, go in with the engineers. They'll start booby trapping vehicles. They'll start placing charges on the vehicles. A big thing is, if you can get close enough to it, get to where they're concentrating the ammunition on the trucks, or if they have it on the ground. Get some smaller satchel charges on that ordnance. Start blowing it up. That'll take out a good chunk of people, a good chunk of the supplies they need, and possibly some vehicles depending on where it's located. Disable as many vehicles as you can and try to permanently disable them. With the strikers, on those, if you can get inside there, try to get a couple pounds of explosive on the engine blocks and then close up the engine compartment so that it contains the blast, damaging the engine as much as possible. But be advised, you can change out an engine in less than an hour. But if you take out a large number of vehicles, then they're going to have to bring in even more replacement engines, replacement power packs to get those vehicles back online. Now, after you start the fuses going on the different charges, that should be when the infantry that are in there with those engineers inside the assembly area start chucking hand grenades and satchel charges inside tents and stuff like that, and inside bunkers. They should all, and then as the enemy troops are coming out because of the explosions, that's when your squad automatic weapons should open up and start cutting them down as they're running, still trying to get their gear on. Remember, you're not trying to annihilate the entire force, you're trying to harass the hell out of them, you're trying to cause them a lot of damage. So don't stick around. If they narrow down where your position is at, change positions and start thinking about getting out of there. Set your criteria as to how much damage you want to cause, and then meet that criteria and then pull out of there. Do not endanger your people unnecessarily. So, if we had light vehicle raiders, say light trucks, Jeeps, SUVs with 50 cals on it, 240s and that type of stuff, well, what you could do, take out the gate guards and that stuff into the assembly area, and then on order you send the signal back to those raiders. They come flying down that roadway right into the enemy assembly area, and they start going full auto on every damn thing they can inside that encampment. Forget doing control bursts. As you're going through, you're just got your finger on the damn trigger and you're just sweeping it around as you're going through, trying to take out as much and as many people as you can, but getting accurate fire is pretty much impossible when you're on the move like that. So you're just going in, sweeping, do a couple loops in there, and then getting the hell out. Along the lines as to what the long-range desert patrols did against German and Italian forces in North Africa in World War II. Obviously, if you had the multiple launch rocket systems, you get them targeted right on those assembly areas, and you set them all off, get them flying in there, and then you get that vehicle pulling out as fast as you can. Artillery pieces, if you can locate them, try to destroy the pieces or at least heavily damage them. Putting explosives inside the breech to try to take it out, where the breech is where you put the rounds in for loading, you're not going to do anything. That's designed to control the blast of that round getting sent out, so it can control a hell of a lot of force. So what you're trying to do, you're trying to go up at the muzzle brake. Get the charges in there past that muzzle brake, that big muffler looking piece at the end. Get it back into the barrel itself and set the charge off in that location, because you're trying to damage the barrel, hopefully blow it apart. Another thing that works with artillery is getting incendiary grenades or thermite grenades up inside the breech. Light it, put it in the breech, close the breech. Let it burn inside the breech. It'll fuse the metal, it'll add additional metal to it as the thermite's burning, and it'll gum it up so bad that they're not going to be able to get the rounds in there for firing. Those pieces are useless until the barrels get changed out. So, now these guys down in here, I'll just mention, they're just trying to slow the enemy advance. So as these guys are coming in, they're picking them off little by little, but they do not stay in place and die a heroic death. Okay, they'll take a few shots, put a few people down, and then they'll pull back. They'll probably pull back by fire team. One fire team's engaging the enemy, the other 5 fire teams moving into the next position, gets in position. The one that was engaging disengages and pulls back. The one that just set up then takes the place of putting the fire on the enemy, and they keep leapfrogging like that. And then to cover their withdrawal, when it's time for them to disengage, the mortars get the signal and they start dropping mortars in there, doing a mix of smoke and high explosive, your fragmentation rounds. The smoke to cover the withdrawal, the explosive, the fragmentation, to cause them casualties. Your anti-armor takes out as many vehicles as possible, concentrating on the ones that can cause you the most problems. Not necessarily the strikers with 50 cals on top, but if you see, say, the engineer version coming in, you see the mobile gun systems coming in, possibly some type of air defense system coming in. If you see any strikers coming in that have the 30mm cannons on them, those definitely would be ones that your anti-armor teams should be taking out before they start pulling back. Anticipate that any wheeled vehicle like that will have anti-RPG slat armor on the sides, the cages, so the best way to take them out is underneath or from above, because they do put the cages over the rear of the ramps too. Hopefully this gets you somewhat of an idea on taking this tactic and using it to slow your enemy, allowing enough time for your troops to pull out and then reorganize for future operations. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and Militia movements, always remember, essayons.